They called it the Slave Coast, a place where gold once shone and freedom was sold to the sea. From these very shores, millions vanished, their stories swallowed by the waves, never to return. In the sun-kissed cradle of West Africa's coastal plains, a land of promise became a graveyard of dreams. Between the 1500s and the 1800s, this region earned its grim name. It became the epicenter of the transatlantic slave trade, a massive, brutal enterprise that forcibly moved millions of Africans to the Americas. So, what happened here? How did this breathtaking coastline become a stage for one of history's greatest tragedies? The story begins not with conquest, but with contact. When Portuguese explorers first arrived in the 15th century, they weren't initially looking for slaves. They were after gold, ivory, and spices. They established trading posts, like Elmina Castle in modern-day Ghana, to facilitate this trade. But as European colonies in the Americas, particularly Brazil and the Caribbean, grew, so did their insatiable demand for labor to work on sugar, cotton, and tobacco plantations. The focus of trade began to shift from goods to human beings. The term Slave Coast specifically referred to the part of West Africa that is now Togo, Benin, and western Nigeria. This region became a major hub for the trade. European powers, the Portuguese, Dutch, English, and French, all vied for control, building forts and trading posts along the coast to protect their interests and manage the horrific logistics of human trafficking. But to understand how millions were captured, we have to look inland. The process wasn't as simple as Europeans sailing up and kidnapping people. Instead, they exploited and exacerbated existing rivalries between African kingdoms and societies. Kingdoms like Dahomey and Oyo became powerful players. They engaged in warfare with their neighbors, capturing prisoners who were then marched to the coast and sold to European traders. In exchange for human lives, these kingdoms received European goods, textiles, alcohol, and most critically, firearms. This created a devastating cycle. The guns gave them a military advantage, allowing them to capture more people, which they could then trade for more guns. This arms race fueled constant conflict, instability, and fear across the region. Entire villages were raided, families were torn apart, and societies were shattered from within. The trade wasn't just a transaction. It was a complex web of coercion, political maneuvering, and betrayal, where both European demand and local participation played crucial roles. Imagine the journey for those captured. It was a multi-stage nightmare. First, the violent capture from their homes. Then, a forced march to the coast, often lasting weeks or months, chained together in long lines called coffles. Many died from exhaustion, starvation, or disease before even reaching the sea. Those who survived were imprisoned in the coastal forts, the infamous castles of no return. Places like Cape Coast Castle and Ouida's slave port became holding pens. People were crammed into dark, unsanitary dungeons for weeks, branded with hot irons to mark them as property, waiting for the ships that would take them across the ocean. The air was thick with despair. Then came the Middle Passage, the transatlantic voyage. It's hard to overstate the horror of this journey. Enslaved people were packed onto ships in conditions so tight they could barely move. Chained in the suffocating darkness below deck, they endured filth, disease, and brutal treatment for months. The mortality rate was astronomical. It's estimated that up to 15 to 20% of Africans died during the voyage. It was a journey of unimaginable suffering. The impact of the slave trade on West Africa was catastrophic and long-lasting. It's estimated that over 12 million Africans were forcibly transported to the Americas, with millions more dying during capture and transit. This massive depopulation robbed the continent of its most able-bodied people. It destroyed economies, dismantled political structures, and sowed seeds of distrust and division that would have consequences for centuries. The social fabric of entire communities was shredded. The loss was not just in numbers, but in culture, in knowledge, in potential. By the early 19th century, the tide began to turn. Abolitionist movements gained strength in Europe and the Americas. Britain outlawed the slave trade in 1807 and used its powerful navy to patrol the West African coast, intercepting slave ships. Other European nations followed suit, though illegal slave trading continued for decades. The era of the slave coast was officially ending, but its legacy was far from over. The scars remain deeply embedded in the landscape and the collective memory of the region. The forts still stand, solemn monuments to the millions who passed through their gates. The descendants of those who were taken form the African diaspora across the Americas, their cultures forever shaped by this history of displacement and survival. And in West Africa, the memory of the trade continues to influence identity, politics, and the relationship between communities. The story of the slave coast is a difficult but essential part of our shared human history. It's a chilling reminder of how greed and power can lead to immense cruelty. But it's also a story of incredible resilience. In the face of unimaginable horror, enslaved Africans held on to their humanity, their cultures, and their hope. They resisted in countless ways, both on the ships and on the plantations, and their spirit of survival echoes through the generations. Understanding this history is not about assigning blame. It's about acknowledging a painful truth and honoring the memory of the millions of lives that were shattered. It challenges us to confront the origins of racial inequality and to recognize the profound and lasting impact of this dark chapter. Thanks for watching. If you found this video insightful, please give it a like, subscribe for more deep dives into history, and share your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time.